for God's people. And so today I thought it would be interesting as we on last time talked about Cain and Abel and the problems that Cain had because he was not faithful and committed to God, that we would talk about the spiritual warfare for the lives of our children this morning. My brothers and sisters, we have to realize that our children are under attack. They are under spiritual attack. Take your neighbor by the hand and look your neighbor in the eye and say, neighbor, you better realize from the time a child is born, that child is under spiritual attack. Amen, amen, amen. And because of that, as parents, it becomes our job, amen, to teach our children how to fight their spiritual battles, and not only to teach them, but to be in spiritual warfare for them. In Genesis, the 4th chapter, and verse 10, we see where Adam and Eve didn't do such a good job of teaching their sons. And not only did they not do such a good job, but we see the consequences of what happens when children are not taught the right way. When they are left to themselves, when they succumb to the spiritual warfare and the attacks of Satan, what can happen in the midst of their lives? It says, and he said in verse 10, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Let me read that again, because God here is talking to Cain about his brother Abel. And he said, what have you done? Sometimes I want to ask parents, what are you doing? What have you done that we find ourselves wrestling for the lives of our children with so many variables that cause them to fail in this day and time? God here speaks in anguish to Cain. What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Take your neighbor by the hand, look your neighbor in the eye one more time. I ain't going to ask you to do it no more today. And tell your neighbor, say, neighbor, I'm going to fight for the lives of our children. Come on, let's give the Lord a round of applause. Let's realize it or not, you've got to fight spiritually. See, some of us are great at fighting physically. We can put up our dukes and dare folk to knock the straw off my shoulder. We can put up our dukes and we can say this is the straw that broke the camel's back, and we can swing some blows. Some of us got some good uppercuts. Some of us got some good hooks. Some of us got some knockout punches. But I want you to understand it's not about the physical battle. See, we are busy fighting a physical battle when it's really a spiritual battle. But we're living in a world now that has given up on the complementarian or the complementary form of relationships. We are no longer caught up in being the perfect mates for one another and traditional relationships. But we've gotten caught up in a world now that believes that egalitarianism is the way, that everybody is equal in everything, that there are no roles, there are no gender roles, that everybody can do the same thing in relationships. But I got news for you today. That's the problem with our world today, is that we can't all do everything. All of us have our roles, and God has given us our roles. You see, because it's nothing like a little child and a mother. A little child is the most dependent thing on earth. And it gets all of its resources from its parents, and especially its mother. You see, a little child, without explaining it to its mother, can let its mother know I'm hungry just by the way it cries. A little child, without being able to say the words, can say, my diaper needs changing without a word. Isn't that amazing? How mothers can figure that stuff out, and babies never say a word. A mother can understand when the child needs washing, and that child allows the mother to wash it when it won't let the daddy wash it. And guess what? The child can't wash itself. The mother clothes the child because the child can't clothe itself when it's naked. Mother feeds the child because the child cannot feed itself. The mother carries the child because the child cannot walk. And it is written, a mother may forget her sucking child, yet God says, even when mothers forget, I will never forget thee, nor will I forsake thee. God says that I will come to you when you're helpless, and I will wash you and clothe you and feed you. And then I will be there so that you will never perish. God lets us know that we are not in this spiritual battle by ourselves. You see, Satan's battle is against the family. It's first against the woman, and then the children, and then the offspring of the children, and the offspring of their children. But you got to understand that sometimes our greatest battle is with our blood relatives. You see, sometimes it's the people in our families who cause us the most difficulty. And we got to understand that our battle is really not against them, but it's against flesh and blood. You see, children that are left to themselves will create situations in life that cause the blood to be spilled out, and will cry out to God. But you see, we've got to teach our children. And that's where we're coming up short. We're not really teaching our children anymore. Children must be taught to love everybody and not to hate anyone. You see, we've come through a world that used to teach hate. We used to teach that black folk hate white folk, and white folk hate black folk, and Indian folk hate white folk, and everybody just hating one another. But we got to come out of that mode. See, that stuff is bad history, bad theology, and a bad past. But we got to learn to love everybody, regardless of the color of their skin.